We also engage in litigation, mostly by filing in front of the court briefs at the appellate court level, but sometimes we do file lawsuits ourselves if we think that a matter is not getting the attention it deserves. And as Ruth mentioned, we did that most recently in the Referendum 71 signatures case. We wanted to make sure that the public interest would be heard in that case. We also participate in the legislative activities. We keep track of every bill that goes through the legislature that has any effect on the open government laws. And if you're familiar at all with the workings of the legislature, you know that that's a big job. There are over 4,000 bills typically introduced in the legislature during each 2-year cycle. And somewhere between 400 and 500 bills pass. Of those 4,000 plus bills, usually about 100 to 150 have an impact on open government in some way. And so we keep track of all of those. The members of the coalition receive weekly updates about legislation so that they know what to contact their legislators about. We also publish a legislative agenda, specific bills that we would like to see passed, or in some cases, bills we would like to see not passed. And we also frequently go down to Olympia and provide testimony on these bills, again, so that the legislators hear the public interest side of this. And then the other thing we do is recognize good acts in support of open government through various types of awards, including awards that we present on an annual basis, and also awards that we present for single good deeds in pursuit of open government. And Christy, where is Christy? Are you here?
I'm over here.
Christy's over here. Christy's one of our key award winners. She takes her cameras like this and tapes a lot of public meetings and then posts them on the internet. Oftentimes these are agencies that would not otherwise have their activities made public in that way. And we recognized her activities for that. These are some of the locations and the dates on which we've had public forums. We usually do about 6 a year. This is our last one for 2009. And we have a lot of distinguished panel members that participate in our public forums, including statewide elected officials like Rob McKenna, Sam Reed, and Brian Sontag, and legislators, local elected officials, and people from the news media, and oftentimes attorneys as well. We'd like to have a good cross-section of speakers so that when we take your questions, we have the experience on the panel to be able to answer even the tough questions. Now, our legislative agenda for this year, I could spend just an hour just talking about this, but I won't. But the top 6 points are, number one, to reverse the Hangartner decision from 2005, which greatly expanded the ability of public agencies to use the attorney-client privilege to keep records concealed from the public. We want to require recording of executive sessions. The recordings themselves would be exempt from disclosure, but agencies would be able to use those recordings to exonerate themselves if they were ever accused of improperly having an executive session. And a judge could review the recording, and if it was found that this executive session was inappropriate, then just that inappropriate portion of the recording would be made public. We want to have more enforcement options besides lawsuits. An administrative process that would be less expensive, kind of like small claims court, rather than having to go to Superior Court. And Tim will talk about that. There's been some progress on that recently. We want to require all government employees and elected officials to receive training in what their responsibilities are with regard to the Public Records Act and the Open Public Meetings Act. And this doesn't have to be an expensive 3-day conference or anything. It can be a 1-hour webinar, online training that could be produced by the Attorney General's office and made available freely. But so far we haven't gotten even that agreed to. We want to improve preservation and access of electronic records. A lot of the laws we have are very specific to paper records and do not recognize some of the recent changes that have come about because of the fact that 90% of the records are electronic, such as requiring agencies to provide records that are in electronic form to the requesters in electronic form, rather than printing out everything and having to pay for photocopies of something that could have been just emailed to you. And finally, this is kind of an inside baseball thing in some ways, stopping abuse of third-party injunctions. And it would take a while to explain that, but essentially an agency can go out and invite one of its employees to sue the agency itself to block release of a record. And then the agency can put up no defense, and then an injunction gets issued by the court and the record is blocked from being released without the original requester ever being informed that this was going on. And we want to change that system to require that the original requester always be a party to such lawsuits. Yes, I'm out of time? Okay, so I could do this for an hour. I won't go over all of the bills that we opposed and supported during this last legislative session, but there is a list of these available out on the table in the lobby if you're interested. There was one bill that we didn't really like that got passed, which limits access to records to incarcerated felons. But there were some that passed that we did support, including requiring rulemaking info to be posted on agency websites and requiring that there always be a public comment period during rulemaking hearings. So I'll wrap it up by saying that we invite you to help us in what we are trying to do. You can join the coalition, support us financially, and also by volunteering your help. Members of the coalition get access to our email list so you can participate in online discussions.